action of something that should fit the whole county, and it doesn't do a very good job of it. The problem that Chief Flint had was this, the staff has had this for 2 or 3 months. The problem is he goes back to the grand jury and says, give me clarification, and we get nothing back. The garbage in is garbage out. I think the comments are very good ones. My suggestion would be, some comments have been made tonight for clarification that Lieutenant Wade might be able to add some specifics to, probably not a whole lot, but some specifics to. Certainly could, I'm just glad somebody else made typos besides me. But
this time.
But these kind of things could be corrected if the council would approve essentially the bones of this letter, and then let the mayor review the Lieutenant Wade's revisions tomorrow, and send it down the line. At least it would be approved on time, and we'd have a way of getting some responses, some factual responses back to them, and in a way that, it's not the best of both worlds, but my experience has been there's no such thing as a good response, because whatever you send them, they're pretty much going to disregard them anyway.
I think that's good comment. But I did want to recognize that the chief did get something out way in advance, and so and I personally appreciated that that was done, and it wasn't just a last minute thing. And I thought that additional facts may have a diminishing return. We could have the facts, and I think that they would add some value. And I we've talked about in the budgeting. I'd like to see zero-based budgeting, but we're not there yet. I know that Robert's going to get us there. So.
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to adopt the recommendation of the city attorney put forth.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay. So we'll move on. Item number 23 is the response in regards to the colleagues letter that was submitted. Oh, sorry. 21. Sorry. 22, sorry. Yeah, 22. Okay. The response to the colleagues letter that was brought before the council last meeting. So, in the last meeting there was, just to catch everybody up, in the last meeting there was a colleagues letter, and what we ended up doing is we voted to look at some of the items that were identified in the mailer and or the phone calls, and where there was some inaccuracies, that we would have staff research those and come back with the specifics, because many of the items that were in there, while there was truth in what was said, it may have been, it was believed that it was taken a little bit out of context. So we had staff come back, and we've tried to identify a few of those things that with some of the facts, and just, we would have to decide today how we would like to proceed. Now, I'll tell the council and the audience that I also took the time to meet with the several representatives of the APOA a week ago Thursday, and I thought we had a very, very positive meeting and a very good meeting. So we're not trying to necessarily have this thing be an inflammatory response, but merely just set the record straight on a few of the items, maybe not all, and then decide how and where and when we would do the communication, because that's what two things that this council would need to decide to do with this item 22. So with that.
Just a point of order. I just was just a little confused about this agenda item in light of what was actually passed at the meeting last month as a future agenda item. And it seemed to me that the response was to the Atherton Police Officers Association townwide mailer. and not mailers or the phone call or anything else like that, which seemed to have been integrated into this letter and this agenda item. Because at that time...
Well, if I could,
Okay.
the items that are bulletized all correspond to things that were on the mailer. The mailer.
Colleagues memo.
The colleagues memo specifically talked about the
The
mailer. Okay. And I went down also the items that were listed in the colleagues memo and developed the response. I came up with a list of questions and asked city staff to research those. City staff, through the city manager's office, and specifically with her permission, have the chief of police also validate those. And then after writing these up, I had both the city manager as well as the chief of police certify that they were happy with the documentation and the facts that are presented here, and I have that in writing from both of them.
Okay. So, okay, but it doesn't include the phone call because the phone call hadn't happened yet. So, just a point of, you know.
Does it say phone call in here?
Yeah.
Okay, scratch the word phone call.
But,
Okay.
anyway, just, you know, just wanted to make sure that
No
we're
problem.
looking at
No
the right
problem.
thing.
I had to write this on a hastily basis because no one would support. I didn't get as much support on this as I wanted to.
Are you ready for comments?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I'm taking a different tack on this because the mailer and the phone communication, we all know are politically motivated or political statements, which are intended to try and have some impact, I think, on the collective bargaining that will take place this next spring with the police department. As such, I don't think it's necessary to counter each point that they're trying to make. These are political arguments that take a great deal of liberty with the facts. I would think that some of the union members who know what the facts are would feel uncomfortable with some of what has been put out there. I do get hot under the collar, however, if there's the slightest implication that the council isn't treating public safety as our #1 priority. It is our #1 priority, public safety. And to carry that out, the actual day-to-day responsibilities for public safety rest with the police chief, who reports up to the council through the city manager. All members of the council agree we have a very good public safety leader. We have said we've had full confidence in our police chief, which we stated on several occasions. We rely on the chief to come up with the recommendations to the council for staffing and budgeting requirements that he needs to carry out his responsibility. This year's budget process was no exception. The chief got what he asked for. He would have told us if he had concerns in meeting his responsibilities. So if the union or its members or residents have concerns, please talk to the police chief. Now, we all know that there's going to be a period of next spring when we have to come sit down at the table and talk about the next contract. It's no secret that the council is concerned as to how the town will meet its future financial needs. It's no secret that the police budget is the largest component of the town's budget, and the public safety compensation costs are the biggest element of the department budget. It's no secret the pension and health care costs have soared compared to other costs in the public sector the past few years. CalPERS losses and increases in insurance rates have been major reasons. And today, in the general public sector, benefit arrangements are much richer than what's being offered in the private sector. This wasn't always the case. It's no secret that Menlo Park and Palo Alto have been doing about what they've been doing about these costs. So it's safe to assume that the police union in town understand that will be a major focus for discussion. So my response to what has happened is, APO, we understand what you are trying to do. You think a good offense is your best defense. But be careful before you imply that town council doesn't care about the safety of our residents. That is our foremost concern, and we certainly support the chief. And the chief is going to, and the way he's going about carrying out his responsibilities for this responsibility. That's my comment on this.
Mr. Mayor, I have a statement I'd like to make, but I'd like to wait till after the public comments.
Okay. Elizabeth?
Well, I believe that we're in campaign mode, and from the national level on down to our little town level, a lot of things are being said that are intended to excite, polarize, and truths and half-truths are being promoted as facts, and it's just freedom of speech. And do I think that the APOA did themselves a good turn by mailing out the first blue mailer? No, I don't. I had a resident call me when he received it, and he said, "What's going on at council? What are you guys doing to the police department? Why are you outsourcing it?" I said, "Did you get the blue mailer?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "That was from the Association of Police Officers. That wasn't from the council. It wasn't from our police department." He says, "Oh, I understand." And so you have to kind of consider the source. I think that it's not up to council, us, as a policy-making body, to begin to try to control what people are saying and to correct the records. I think that our actions speak more than getting into a tit-for-tat, going back and forth, and trying to control the message. I know that if the president of the APOA had taken the time to do some fact-checking with the city manager, maybe some of the facts, maybe some of the statements on that mailer would not have been so egregious. And yet, at the same time, I don't think that we have to be careful with having our city manager or staff become part of the message, because it is their freedom of speech. Things are being said about me all the time, about other candidates, and it's the political process. You just keep going forward. I don't think that making the response that is in front of us is going to do any good for our image as a council, for responding. I think that our actions as a council, as a policy-making body, should speak much louder than trying to respond to every bullet point on some campaign literature. We are going to be going into negotiations next year with the APOA, and it can be ugly, it can be rational and reasonable. Mayor Widmer and I were at the League of Cities annual conference in September, and there was a seminar on labor negotiations, and there's a paradigm shift. I've talked with the city manager about this, the new city manager, and it's no longer the way it used to be of upping the ante and hardball negotiations, because of our economic conditions in jurisdictions all up and down the state, that this is all we can do. If you want more, there's going to be less. We can't give more than what we have, and you have to show that, and you have to go forward. We all want a safe Atherton, People want to have good jobs. We want to have a good police department. We have an excellent chief of police. We want to have good working relationships. So I honestly, I didn't get the robocall. I got their endorsement, but you know what? I didn't answer their questions the way that people think that I answered their questions. I posted my questionnaire on my website, and their questions were very specific, you know, about outsourcing, about pensions and stuff. And I said, you know, if it's economically critical to the health of our community, we will outsource. And we may not be able to pay all the high pensions that you think you want if it's not economically feasible. So it's really the health of the organization. So I don't know what else to say. I think I had a lot more. The bottom line is, I think that our job as policymakers, and not we're not here to try to correct every misstatement or error in a campaign literature. I have other comments, but I'll wait until after the public comments.
I'd like to hear what the public has to say. Thank you.
Okay, public comments, please.
Pat Dobby, 124 James.
Can you pull the microphone down so that Lou can hear you?
And
others as well.
In light of what Ms. Lewis just said, and I realize that being a candidate is no fun. Been there, done that with my husband. Would she now agree to moving those signs that have 2 candidates' names endorsed by the APO from the gardens of our beloved town?
Right.
Greg Conlon, one of the candidates running for city council, and I just want to set the record straight that after receiving the phone call from the police, I talked to the president of the APOA and read the statement to him. I had a transcription of it, and I said, to me, that infers pretty strongly that Greg Conlon, favor outsourcing. And he assured me that there was no intention for that inference to be drawn. And I said, well, I will repeat that in a phone call of my own, and I sent out a phone call that basically said that. Now, I guess the only thing else that could be done is he could send out a phone call that also sets the record straight, that even though they're endorsing 2 candidates, it does not infer that the 2 other candidates are certainly be, in any way, wants to outsource the police department. And in fact, that's one of my platform points not to do. So I just want to set the record straight.
Okay. Any other public comments? Malcolm?
Malcolm Dudley, 51 Catalpa Drive, and congratulations and welcome to our soon new city manager, and also our appreciation for all that Teresa has done over this last year. You know, there are reasons why the communication came to us, and so let me just briefly go through some of the points that I think are important as part of the background that leads toward this kind of a concern. Most importantly, the town fired most of our non-police personnel, which gives very little feeling of security for all ATHERTON employees, including our police. 2, in analyzing the past 3 years of expenses, the biggest annual increase for the ATHERTON came in the city attorney's, not during your tenure, the ATHERTON city attorney's department, which is 7.13% a year. The smallest amount of increase came from the police department, 3.3% a year. There had been significant reduction in the police department. The town had reduced the size of our police department from 25 to 16 sworn officers. 3, reduced for some time the number of officers on patrol from 3 per shift to 2 per shift. This left the town less secure, particularly where one officer had to do a booking up in Redwood City, where then you would have to have, and they could be involved for an hour and a half. leaving only one officer to respond to emergencies, be it burglaries, heart attacks. And 4, elimination of the school resource, and I know there's been some earlier discussion here, at that point at least, had a potential significant negative impact. When Dick Moore was our chief of police, he formed a coalition of police from our neighboring communities to arrest participants in drug dealings. When making the arrest, they found that the buyers, though it was over in East Palo Alto, the sellers happened to be from East Bay. They came there because of a market. And that market turned out to be young people, primarily from Atherton, Woodside, and Portola Valley. So drug dealings were really a huge issue, and I hope that I might be able to continue this.
Well, let's move on.
Yeah. Number 5, there were discussions with Mr. Maltby, San Carlos city manager, concerning their approach in outsourcing their police department to the sheriff's department. Clearly, these discussions brought into question our town's plans. Some years ago, there had been discussions concerning possible merger of the dispatches with Menlo Park. Finally, a matter of trust. What I am going to say, I wrote in my almanac on July 20th, 2011, titled Hard to Find a Financial Crisis in Atherton. I also came before you, the council, to argue against the outsourcing of our staff employees and pointed out in my presentation and on the op-ed that the reported budget deficit of $856,000 was not a correct amount, was greatly exaggerated. Through analysis of financial statements, it became clear to me that we were estimating building department revenues of $1 million, when in fact it was clear that those figures would be closer to $1.4 million, reducing the stated budget deficit by half. You were not told about this major misstatement of our budget until Mr. Danielson told you at the council meeting 2 nights after the op-ed. Either he had badly misinterpreted the financial figures or was fear-mongering in order to persuade you and the community that we needed to fire our employees. Clearly, this creates a crisis in trust and adds to the concern of all of our town employees, not just the police. If the roles reversed and each of you were police officers in this town, in an environment of questionable trust and actions, you would respond exactly as they did in this case. We have a great opportunity to turn this around now with a new city manager who can restore trust, let our employees know that they are trusted and valuable members of our community. We want to restore a feeling of confidence and keep our community as one of the safest communities in the state. In the past, apprehension rates of burglaries was 50% for Atherton, while the statewide average was only 8%. Public safety should be one of our top priorities, and a strong and dedicated police force is the foundation for this security. So what I'm hoping is that we go back to the old values of respecting and honoring the work of our dedicated employees in our police. Thank you.
Any other public comments?
Yes.
I'm Stephen Goldby, and I live at 180 Stockbridge Avenue. I was pleased to hear this evening the statement by the councilman that public safety is our #1 priority. Because when I and others supported the parcel tax, it was in the expectation that that self-taxation would prevent the sort of staff reductions we've seen in the last several years in the Atherton police force. It's very difficult to tell when staff reductions reach a critical level, and unfortunately these things, whether it's in government or it's in business, are only realized after something unfortunate happens. So I, for one, welcomed the mailer and the call of the association. One benefit of it is that it's led to each of the candidates for city council stating that under the current circumstances, they're opposed to outsourcing the police to the county. As a longtime resident, I thought that was the single worst idea I'd ever heard. And I mean, if we're going to reduce our level of public safety to that of unincorporated areas, why should this be a town at all? I mean, what are the services would the residents value? So having the candidates come out in favor of preserving our own town police, I think is a very positive result of this mailer and this call. And for that reason, I support what the association did. Thank you.
Any other public comments?
My name is Ann McNerney. I live at 1 Watkins. I'm glad to hear that as all the candidates are not willing to outsource the police department. However, the money to pay for the police department comes from the parcel tax. And I believe in 2010, Dovey and Widmer discussed sunsetting and pushed perhaps for sunsetting the parcel tax. So, in the same way that none of the candidates expressed an opinion about the library, and yet it was the biggest town council issue for 2011 and 2012, as far as sunsetting the parcel tax, I would like to hear what, if they do sunset the parcel tax, which is a major source of revenue for the police department, how will they pay for the police department? Or what their opinion is on the parcel tax. Thank you.
Any other public comments? Oh.
Bob Roser, 23 Wilburn Avenue. Elizabeth mentioned that it's time for campaigns. And during campaigns, we excite, get polarized, get emotional, and out of that, we try to figure out the truth, or what we believe the truth. And it's politics. I mean, it's politics. When I watched the presidential debate, I thought I would get some clarity on the truth or the issues, and what I got was two people accusing each other of being wrong on every other statement. So instead of getting informed, I got more confused. I urge the council not to make a detailed reply to this because I think it is a defensive look. It looks defensive. And you have no reason to be defensive about your focus, concern, or your record on the safety of the residents in Atherton. Thank you.
John?
Hi, I'm John Buckheit, Selby Lane. I read an article this week that, for me, put this into perspective, and that was the Forbes listing of the richest zip codes in the United States. Atherton has fallen to number 3, and number 1 is now an area of Manhattan with the zip code 10065, which has about 25,000 people. It's a 10-block area between 60th and 69th Streets near Central Park. And I've lived there, and I currently spend time there. And I've never heard anyone there say that their home values are affected by being part of the general New York City Police Department. They're part of the 19th Precinct, which serves over 200,000 residents in New York City. The top salary for a police officer in New York City is about 20% less than it is here in Atherton. They can retire after 22 years with a 50% pension, and after 30 years with a 60% pension. And in New York, when you read the newspapers, they're constantly talking about how that's out of control. So that puts some things into perspective. I do think that Ms. Lewis showed some leadership when she published the results of her survey. I think the other 3 candidates really must do the same thing for transparency. I think she was also correct in the video at the campaign forum in which she said each of the 4 candidates sought the endorsement of the police union, which I think is appalling. I think that none of the candidates should have accepted or looked for an endorsement from a group they're going to be negotiating with in several months. I think it's very wrong, and I really can't understand why. I can understand why candidates for a president, a governor, or a senator want endorsements from unions because they have union members who vote for them, or they have like-minded people from other blue-collar professions who would vote for them, but it's difficult to understand in Atherton why a candidate would seek an endorsement of a union. So very disappointing from all 4 candidates.
Any other public comments?
Hi, my name is Michael Stogner, and I've spoken in front of the council many times as a victim's advocate. throughout San Mateo County for the last 12 years. And I can tell you that I think in this particular case, everybody is, anybody that would state they don't support the police department is at risk at this time. Not from anything particularly dangerous, but I think every single council member should just take a deep breath. And I think for the first time, I don't think I've ever seen a town, I believe the APOA has actually really crossed the line by bringing, instead of just saying, hey, we endorse a certain candidate, they've crossed the line. And I have a high regard for all of you. And I think that anybody that said anything negative about your police department would be an idiot. And so I just wish you all the very best, and I'm sure that you can work this thing through, but this is not an easy time for you guys. So that's what I want to say. Thank you.
Other public comments? John?
John Ruggiero, Stockbridge Avenue. We're talking about the police here. There's one officer sitting here, Lieutenant Wade, who doesn't belong to the APOA. Neither does the chief belong to this organization. The ones that run our department don't belong. There's some people in the organization that are not sworn police officers, which I don't understand. And I speak not as a 33-year resident of Atherton. I speak as the former president of the San Francisco Veteran Police Officers Association, 900 members, which are all retired sworn officers. I also speak as presently the board of directors of this organization. And people have been, in my neighborhood, have been talking to me about this sign issue of the Teamster Police Union backing candidates. And several ladies that live alone in my area tell me they've had signs put on their lawns, and other people have had signs, my neighbor behind me, signs put on their lawns, which is a crime, trespassing, where they walked up and put the sign there. This is a joke. The San Francisco Police Officers Association, 1,700 members, 3 or 4 years ago, dropped the Teamsters Union because of their arm-twisting activities. They're out of that union. They just dropped another union. They don't even have a union. But this is, and also they talk about the parcel tax paying for the police department. Parcel tax totals approximately 1.4 million, I presume. I'm about correct, aren't I, on that?
1.8.
Yeah, and the 1.3. The police department
1.8.
1.8. The police department costs us about 7-8 million a year. So this doesn't really support the police department. It may pay for the gas or the car washing. But I think this attitude of backing candidates isn't that bad. But when you start backing them by trespassing and putting signs all over town, assuming that the people that live nearby are for this issue, it's completely wrong.
Any other public comments? Okay, seeing none, then we'll close the public comments. We'll come back to the council.
Yeah, I have a statement that I would like to make, and if anybody wants copies of it, I have extra copies. I'm sad that the Teamsters Union and the APOA have decided to use us and them tactics in their run-up to the negotiations on their new contract. The Teamsters are well known for their bare-knuckle tactics, but I'd hoped we would never see that in Atherton. Our police are an important part of the administration of our town and are strongly supported by most of the residents and the council. To see the Teamsters APOA flagrantly attempting to influence the upcoming election by not only endorsing but financially supporting candidates with members' dues is beyond outrageous. One of the endorsed candidates has contributed nothing to the town except derogatory remarks about the present council. I suppose on the questionnaire he answered with all the promises they required. Their candidates, should they be elected, will be considered in the pocket of the APOA despite their disclaimers, and in contract negotiations ethically should recuse themselves. I have not been an advocate of outsourcing, and last year as mayor, I met with many of our police officers and publicly told them that. One of the questions in the APOA questionnaire to the candidates was, do you believe in protecting police officers' retirement plans and health benefits, regardless of state and/or city budget deficits? Their answer to these questions is confidential, so we don't know how the endorsed candidates replied despite any public statements to the contrary. But clearly, if they replied in the affirmative, they are not representing the residents of Atherton or considering the town's financial well-being. And the reason for last year's outsourcing of the building and public works departments was to protect the town from going bankrupt. Over the last few years, I have talked to many of our young police officers who have told me privately that they do not approve of the APOA older member tactics, but because of the union, they will not publicly say so. The APOA brochures and robocalls with the lightly disguised threats that if you do not vote for their endorsed candidates, residents' homes and safety will be at risk is totally untrue, and I certainly hope backfires. The police chief, the best we have had in years, has assured me that the residents' safety and security will not be influenced by any political associations or candidates' signs on their properties. I hope all our council members and residents repudiate the outrageous tactics of the APOA and their self-serving attempts to influence an election with implied